off for now. Okay, here we go. The Common Council meeting to be held in the Greenfield Common Council Chambers, Room 100 of the Greenfield City Hall is called to order on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Would you please call the roll?
Alderperson Labatsky,
Present.
Alderperson Bailey,
Present.
Alderperson Akers,
Present.
Alderperson Sarian,
Present.
Alderperson Kastner.
Present.
Item 2 is the opening prayer. Is there anyone here this evening for that? Okay, item C is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me as we engage in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving along, item D is approval of the March 3rd, 2020 Common Council minutes. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Motion by Kastner, second by Alderperson Labatsky. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I want to make sure that I have the right agenda. It had been,
The revised.
I don't
or
have the,
revised?
I don't have the revision. Can I borrow it?
That one?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Item E is under Mayor's Report. The first issue that we have before us is a resolution awarding the sale of $4,940,000 of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020A, providing the form of the bonds and levying a tax in connection therewith. We have Dawn from Miller's here to go through the sale results. Most of us have been through this exercise on a number of occasions. If you could hit the high points, that would be great.
Two pieces of information that you've received tonight. One, the clerk provided you a revised resolution. So I want to note that that's the one you'll actually taking action on. That was prepared today by your bond attorney, Tom Griggs, and it's populated with the results of today's sale. And the important thing to realize that the dollar amount is lower than what your agenda had listed because we downsized the issue. So it's $4,905,000. So when you take action, that will be the dollar amount of the issue. And the second piece is that was handed out to you this evening was a sale day report. And this is the tabulation of the results of the sale. We proceeded this morning and took bids on a competitive basis at 10:30 this morning for your financing for your 2020 capital. Many of those contracts you've already entered into and engaged for approval to begin the work, and as well as a refunding of one of your outstanding issues. So this report summarizes this on page 2. We had 5 bids, and pointing out too that Moody's had affirmed your AA2 rating, so that translates into interest rates. We had 5 bids, and Bankers Bank out of Madison, Wisconsin was the winning bid. Bankers Bank serves as the investment arm for all the local banks throughout the state, or most of the local banks. And so the difference between our high and our low bid today, Bankers won the bid with a 1.9% TIC. And to give you an idea of what that compares to, our planning estimates were at 2.31, so about 40 basis points below our planning estimates. The difference between our high and low bid was $106,000. So the benefit of doing this, especially in today's environment, on a competitive basis. So ultimately, to jump to kind of the highlights, beginning on page 3 is the list of bidders. It ranks them from the low bid to the high bid. And the two things they bid on is an underwriter discount and the interest rates. They took a real low underwriter discount, which allowed us to downsize the issue. So that lists the 5 bids we received. They range from Milwaukee to New York to Madison and to Minneapolis, where the underwriters were located. On page 5 is the sizing, which lists all the estimated cost, our ability to downsize. The other important thing, not only were we able to reduce $35,000 from the principal amount of the issue, we also have additional funds for projects to the tune of about $62,000. And that can be used either on, if you have any cost overruns on any of the projects you're doing now, or it can be used for projects next year. And you're benefiting with the rates as they stand right now. All in all, then, the overall cost of finance is about $59,248 less than our planning estimates. In addition, we have 62,000 of extra project funds, and we were able to downsize the issue by 35,000. So the rest of the schedules kind of break all that down. One of the things we talked about last month when I was here is where interest rates are. If you turn to page 16 of this, which is the last page, you can see over the last 12 months, we have seen in this last volatile week and a half, or actually week, rates kind of taking a step up. But I still think today was a good timing, and not knowing where things will be going forward, things may get worse before they get better, so. But I'm happy to answer any questions. I know I kind of skimmed through this rather quickly, but the schedules are similar to the planning schedules, other than the lower interest rates.
At 1.9%, I never remember any offering coming in below 2%. And I do know that the Fed rate is essentially zero now.
Right, and what's really low right now is treasuries, and, that is somewhat comparable, but not necessarily when it comes to the tax exempt municipal
Okay.
market. So, yeah, less than 2% is pretty good for a 15-year financing.
Just want to, so one of the kind of questions that I have, just because the Fed rate is 0% doesn't mean that there's, and I know you can't foresee the future, that somehow, when we go out for bid on these types of bonds, that we're going to approach 0%. That's the cost of the money to the folks
For the banks, yeah.
that lend the money.
Yeah.
Okay.
You knew that, though.
I kind of did, but I was asked about it twice today by people. So it's an historically low interest rate for sure.
Yeah, and even if, had you sold this a week ago, you probably could have gotten a lower rate, but, the market has changed, and it'll continue to be volatile, I think, for the near term, so.
So I don't know. So if the effective Fed rate is 0, there's not much lower that it can go. This is roughly in concert with the kind of yield that you would expect probably, and I understand that it could drop as well in the future. But 2% over the Fed rate is probably about where it's going to probably land, barring some worldwide economic catastrophe.
I think in light of the fact that you've got projects that you're moving forward with, timing-wise of needing the money, a lot can change in the next month. Whether you're going to be holding meetings a month from now is yet to be seen. So how would you go through the process of authorizing a sale if you're not meeting? So, there's a lot of things that can change between now and a month from now. So
Yeah.
I think
No one may
timing-wise,
bid on
it
them,
was.
too.
That's the other part.
I'm sorry, what?
No, nobody potentially could bid on them, and you wouldn't.
Right.
So the number of bidders that we had was
5 is good. We always want to see more than 3.
significantly lower than it normally is.
I wouldn't.
You get like 7 and 9, right? In some cases we get,
We
no?
haven't seen that much in a lot lately. We had another one today that was 4, maybe 5.
Okay.
We had not one that was a little bit more than this, but 5 is a pretty decent showing. We always want to see more than 3 if we can, or at least 3.
The other thing that I need to sort of ask is, in the event that we didn't do these projects this year due to unforeseen circumstances, there are arbitrage laws, which would mean that we would have to spend this money that would be on account within how many years?
Period of time.
Is it 3 years?
Generally, it's 3, but you have to track your
Right,
earnings.
I understand that the accounting is a little bit more difficult.
So your
but-
earnings probably will be, right now, you probably wouldn't have to worry about arbitrage again, now that rates have dropped, in terms of the investment side of things, so.
Right.
But,
Arbitrage is you can't make money on borrowed money.
so you still need
Basically.
to spend it.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
No.
I'd entertain a motion adopting the resolution awarding the sale of formerly $905,000 in general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020A, providing the form of the bonds and levying a tax in connection therewith.
So moved.
Motion by Alderperson
Second.
Kastner, second by Alderperson Bailey. Would you please call?
Alderperson Labatsky,
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey,
Aye.
Alderperson Akers,
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian,
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I'd entertain a motion to reconsider?
So moved.
Motion by Alderperson Akers, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Sarian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. I'd entertain a motion to reaffirm the
Motion to
initial.
reaffirm.
Motion by
Second.
Alderperson Kastner, second by Alderperson Lubatsky. Would you call? I'm sorry.
Alderperson Lubatsky?
Aye.
Did you say aye? Alderperson Bailey?
Aye.
Alderperson Akers?
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian?
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item E2.
Can I just, there, normally I would have a form for you and the clerk to sign. It didn't get put in my packet, so I've asked for it to be emailed to either Jennifer or to Paula. Can you be available tomorrow to sign
May I
it?
suggest that you email it to both
Okay,
to make sure that it gets here?
yeah.
Okay.
And if you're able to sign it
I-
tomorrow and get,
We will do that.
It needs to be signed tomorrow?
it's just the confirmation that the bids are accepted, so.
We'll do it.
All right.
If you
I
do
don't
it,
know why it
if
didn't
you
get-
do it tonight, I can sign and scan it back too.
Okay.
But I
I'll
think
see
you
if
have
they-
to,
if-
she has to notarize it, right?
No, it's just, someone has to just, not
Affirm.
notarize, but affirm your signature, yeah.
If we get it, maybe I can get it tonight.
Okay.
All right. All right, E2 is discussion to city's response to COVID-19 and consideration of a resolution declaring a public health emergency in response to COVID-19 coronavirus in accordance with Wisconsin statutes 323.11. The resolution, I believe it's a resolution, is in your packet. Have you had a chance to review that? I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Motion to approve resolution as presented.
Motion by Alderperson Kastner, is there a second? Second by Alderperson Lubatsky.
All 1.5 pages.
So, yeah, so there's a few ministerial reasons that we want to do this, because as you're probably aware watching the news, that there is federal and state money being dedicated to this crisis. The earlier that the emergency declaration is put in place, the faster you're in the queue, right? That's part of it. The other thing, things are not normal right now in City Hall in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't take a genius. It probably just takes watching CNN for about 15 or 20 minutes to see how quickly things are changing. We have been operating essentially under the guise of an emergency order. We have, as a staff, have an emergency operations center set up in the library's conference room, where we've been watching and participating in various teleconferences, 2 or 3 today, where we've been formulating opinion in a rapidly changing environment on all sorts of levels. Usually, as the mayor, I've tried to keep all of you informed and up to date if something big is happening. Usually I'll copy the alderperson, say, I just want you to know that, you know, I let Dan Jansen Fest stay open, stuff like that, right? This isn't like that, and quite frankly, I haven't had the time, and our staff hasn't had the time to perhaps communicate with you to the degree that we would like to.
It would probably change by the time we read it anyhow.
There's an example recently with regards to restaurants and bars I could probably talk in great passionate detail about, and probably the 10 or 12 hours of time that Darren, John, I, Julie, John, Ray, and Jay spent on it. Only, you know, pushing for the governor to do something, and sort of getting the idea late last night that that's not going to happen, only to have it happen. That being said, I asked staff to put together a list, and I'm going to read this list of the things that we've kind of done recently. And when I read an item that says, for instance, you know, that, you know, we reached out to somebody and I mean, that is a lot of hours, okay? So on January 22nd, and I want to go through this timeline, there's a bit of a timeline here, and John, our emergency manager, has a copy of this. And we put this together, and I thank you, John, we put this together in between teleconferences. I want to thank Darren and Ray and Julie and John L. and the rest of the staff that's not in the closed group. They've been busy in City Hall preparing this building. On January 22nd, we received a Department of Public Health guidance on COVID-19. February 28th, Health meets with schools on COVID-19 threat. February 29th, first COVID case in the U.S., Washington State. A high-level citywide this is when we started. High-level citywide discussions began internally. March 2nd, health update to city staff. These updates are not like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that this happened. These are thorough, well-vetted discussions. March 4th, COVID-19 becomes a reportable disease. Greenfield Dispatch starts 9/11 screening of calls for virus symptoms. This was guidance that had been floating around out there that the county and the state had wanted to implement a week later. In essence, a week later, we began implementing that screening process immediately. We didn't wait for folks to tell us to do it. March 5th is the first COVID case in Wisconsin. March 6th, all the city department heads gathered to discuss the emerging COVID threat. We immediately called a managers only meeting in this room and said it's time to take this very seriously while we, I'm a little commentary or I don't know, whatever this is, but it was pretty clear that all of this stuff was happening, but it was also pretty clear that the guidance that was coming from the federal government and the state government was a couple of weeks behind. I wanted to make sure, and John and Darren especially, we wanted to make sure that everybody understood that this was a serious potential threat. And we began our internal processes then. March 12th, 9 city older adult complexes are brought together to share information and share understanding of the risk to their population. So that we invited the 9, I believe it's the 9 largest adult centers. These are the Clement Manors of the world, and I won't name all of them. We brought them into this room. We explained the risk. We understood immediately that some were very prepared and some maybe not as prepared. That's roughly 1,000 people that live in our community or more. Immediately following that meeting, because they were looking for guidance from somebody, Darren took the big step of strongly recommending and providing strong support and ideas of what they should do, which included essentially locking down their facilities. The guidance that came from elsewhere was many days later. I want to remind you all that in the state of Washington, in the senior center that this happened, when the virus spread, the mortality rate was incredibly high. Some of the facilities in our community have 200 or 300 residents each, and we're, I think, smaller than the Washington facility. I don't know what their total bed count was. So we thought that that was important. On March 12th, our first city employee was quarantined due to a travel to a hotspot. I want you all to know that I think there are 4 city employees now under quarantine that came from places from around the world. We're basing that on CDC guidance and the best information that we have. When those folks left, and I don't remember what colors they are on the map, they were green, it's fine. When they came back, the colors were changing very rapidly, and the guidance says 14 days. Quarantine means they're quarantined. March 13th, all the city department heads gathered to discuss emerging threats, essential services, and department staffing. So 1 week later, last Friday, we had another meeting. One of the things I wanted to point out about this, in many ways it was, so we're all viewing this through, and whether we know it consciously or subconsciously, we're viewing this through political lenses, right? We're viewing this as where we get our information from, okay? It's all nonsense, it's all whatever it is, right? It's, you know, this is the way to get socialized medicine and this, whatever, or this is a way to get them, right? All that stuff is going on, and this the response has not been immune to that. We made it clear, I made it clear in that meeting, that I don't care what your political lens is, whether it's on this side or it's on this side, that we have a duty to the people that live in the city to be as proactive as we possibly can to make sure that if it's real, whether it's real, we're treating it as real, okay? And I want to thank all of the staff. We are blessed truly with great staff. They all took it seriously, and a lot of actions that don't even show up on the sheet that I'm reading from have happened since. Health Department with both school districts to discuss school closures. So before the stuff went out, before the governor issued his school closure edict or order, proudly say that our health department and other health departments were working with not only Greenfield and Whitnall school districts, but other school districts to come up with a cohesive plan to do it. Schedules, spring breaks, teachers, hours of instruction, all of those things have been talked about for hours. The districts made the decision to close the schools shortly thereafter. I think the governor did the same thing. I might have the timing wrong, but it was quick. Since then, the state has issued, and I don't know if we call this guidance, I haven't seen it officially, but essentially many of the requirements to graduate, the number of instruction hours, have all been amended to reflect what's going on right now. I want to do a special shout out to both superintendents from both districts and their staffs that are working tirelessly to figure out how to, their organizations are bigger than ours with a lot more moving pieces and participants, constituents that are on it. They've done a spectacular job. We also engaged, because another large group within the community that has the potential for exposure are churches and places of faith. We organized a virtual meeting with faith-based leaders, excuse me, my voice is going to go, with faith-based leaders that was extremely well received by those that attended. Since then, we've gotten reach outs from, I can talk about, I know there's a number of them and I don't want to miss them all, but the Ridge and the Baptist Church on Layton, and a number of others have reached out and said, we're here if you need us, which is a great, it's great for the community, it's great for us in the event that we need those resources. Those communication channels are opening, and the spigot, I think, is wide open in the event that we need those. On March 15th, we were a little concerned that the message kind of wasn't getting out. People were sort of still behaving like they normally did. We deployed all the message boards in the city with 4 simple messages. You know, and I don't remember what they are now. It's wash your hands, stay far away. You may have seen them deployed throughout the city. We also worked through Park and Rec. We developed a graphic because we were looking for graphics from the CDC for a PSA. We created a PSA. We transmitted that PSA and the graphic that we created here to Clear Channel Communications, which is putting it into their cycle, and it should also be appearing on the Clear Channel message board that's outside the community center. Again, it's a simple message. March 6th, so these are the highlights of what we've done, okay. March 16th, City Emergency Operations Center opens, limited physical and virtual. So the library had closed. We looked for a place that was isolated, that wasn't in the flow of work, right? And that was secure and had the technology. Sheila suggested and donated the library to us and has been very helpful throughout the process. Within, I believe, 12 hours, we have all of our communications set up in there. We have the ability to do isolated telephone conferences. We have the ability to work, and we have exposure and access to all of the technology we need. The concern was doing it in a fire station or doing it in a police station or doing it in City Hall, that some of that might interfere with work. This has turned out to be a good situation, and we're using it. On March 16th, we had our first virtual EOC meeting. Right now, that room is up and running. All the technology is there. We were there for 4 or 5 hours today. I expect as the curves go and things, and that we will probably be spending much more time there. As of this time, some departments' timing varies. All citywide activities are scaled back to essential services only. What does that mean? That means that because there could be a significant hit, and there could be a significant need, the police and fire department, their operations are amended to reflect essential services. So some of the regular calls to service that we may do, I don't know how to say it any other way, that some of the touchy-feely service-oriented calls, that's probably not the right way to say it. Some of those things will be scaled back to make sure that both the police and the fire department are in a situation of extreme operational readiness. It's also designed to limit exposure to situations where we're trying to do that. All city buildings are closed except for the clerk's office, even this building, and we've been going through this today. All offices in City Hall, other than the clerk's office, and there have been at least 4 or 5, 6 hours of discussion, I think, today on the clerk's office. Not all with Jennifer, but trying to come up with solutions that we can present to Jennifer and the clerk's office tomorrow. I want to thank John for the outreach. He's been an ambassador, I think. He's also responsible for the implementation of many of these things. You will notice on the doors, there are ways to contact all departments. The doors are locked or closed, right? But people are still working here. We went through the rudimentary, this is the number you call, this is the email you call, and this is the website. All of those things are a work in progress. But we got the information up. We will start through social media and all the other things that we've been engaged in. We will start disseminating that information out to the public in greater form as it becomes more finalized and more fine-tuned. We still have some issues with the clerk's office that we need to deal with. I have been in discussions with other mayors and other folks about how some of the guidance doesn't seem to be in concert with the reality of the situation pragmatically when it comes to implementation. I will say for the record, I applaud the state of Ohio's decision to postpone elections and understand that it's a complicated situation, and I understand the legislation that's out there, and I understand the Constitution, and I understand all of these things. I get it very well. But my fear is that we're going to spend perhaps if we talk about, quote, person hours, I guess we have to say now. If we talk about person hours, it's thousands of hours we're going to be spending doing things ultimately for an election that by all intents and purposes times very closely to peaking of coronavirus, which will ultimately mean that all that time was wasted when we could have been doing other things that were more productive. That's my commentary. All parks and recreation activities have been suspended as of Friday, Friday. There were events in the community center. I want to thank Scott and the entire park staff. There were events scheduled. There were a lot of registrations for a lot of things. As of now, all park and rec activities are canceled, likely through April, and maybe beyond. It's, as we know. I also want to thank Sheila in the library Sheila took the bold step, and then we were on a conference call when all this started with 190, I think it was 196 participants. And somebody asked, well, what are you doing with the libraries, right? And there was a whole bunch of, well, I don't know, and, we probably need to, have the MCFLS board meet, which is the Federated Library System, and who knows when we can schedule that. We pointed out that we had already closed our library on Friday, and we were asked how we did and what we did. Continuity of operation plans have been initiated to move services away from face-to-face and telecommuting when possible. This again gets back to the stuff that we're doing in City Hall. Most of the stuff will be, to the extent that we can, telecommunicated, is that the right word? We're going to try to do as much stuff offsite as we possibly can. All of the essential people that are responsible for the essential continuity of operations have been provided laptops. We've also initiated this Zoom thing, where, and if you know what Zoom is, but we can have virtual meetings, and we are prepared to do that, and other things that we need to do to make sure the vital operations of the city aren't interrupted. Other items, there are, and this, we need to say this, and if you watch the news, you probably know many of these things already, but I just want to point out a few of the high points. There are extreme supply chain shortages. We continue to look for vendors, but it is very difficult. My discussions with most have suggested, and I'm not talking about ventilators, I'm talking about, everything in the supply chain has been disrupted in one way, shape, or form. Even today, when we had the teleconference with the governor's office and his staff, it sounds as if, and I'll just use this as an example, so the test kits have finally been distributed in sufficient quantity, okay? Or they're getting there, or they're close to getting there. But the solutions or products or chemicals that they need to process the tests are in short supply. Those kinds of things are happening everywhere, whether it's from hand sanitizer, which is sold out throughout the entire country, generally, unless somebody finds a warehouse with it. When it comes to masks, when it comes to all of those things, and there are other things, of course, in the supply chain that are much more vital to everybody, that are also in very, very short supply. Okay? We are doing what we can to make sure that we acquire those products on an active basis. We are rationing supplies and trying to use appropriately to ensure that we do not run out. One of the things I'll give you as an example, masks, the N95 masks that everyone hears about, many of them have expired. There are supplies that, I guess from the last emergency, that have expired. The expiration usually relates to the rubber banding that's around it, disintegrating and falling apart and maybe not providing a right fit. We're testing that stuff to see if it works. And if the rubber's not falling apart, we're using it. It's an example. There's other stuff like that. All fire departments in Milwaukee County are collaborating with health, which is something I would argue was unheard of a year ago, or maybe since the beginning of time, to provide a regional COVID response. Many of the things that we've talked about over the years when it comes to things like consolidation and coordination and and all the political things that kind of get in the way of that sometimes, many of those things are disappearing quickly as we all recognize that we have to work regionally to solve this problem. If one of our fire stations or one of our groups gets wiped out, we need to make sure that regionally that there's something there to back us up, and vice versa. Travel guidance has been changing continuously as the virus spread changes. Up until recently, up until 2 weeks ago, there were people talking about going on cruises and going and traveling here and traveling there. This is an HR nightmare because it's changing so quickly, And just like with some of the folks that are quarantined, just because when you left it was good, coming back isn't so good. Globally, what you're seeing, and that's kind of a no pun intended, people were talking, well, you can't come from China, you can't come from Europe. Well, then you can't come from these countries, right? There was this international kind of thing going on. What I think you'll start seeing over the next couple weeks is you'll start to see national kind of travel restrictions, and it's almost like concentric circles that are going to start centering on cities and places. So you can't go to, well, you should never go to Greendale, but you can't go to Greendale. That was a bad joke. Sorry. But that's the kind of stuff that you're seeing. 4 city employees on mandatory quarantine, 3 were not returned to risk. I don't know what that means. In essence, it means that while they weren't symptomatic, we need to make sure some of them are in vital positions within the city. The other thing I need to remind everybody of, so don't come up to me and ask me who's on quarantine. Don't come up to ask me what's their situation. HIPAA rules apply to all of these situations. In the event, and I think the staff understands this very well, while an employee can certainly disclose that they're under quarantine, we have a duty and responsibility and a legal mandate not to talk about that stuff. Okay. Employees on leave are being assigned work via telecommuting just because they're not here. If they're not symptomatic, the resources have been provided so that they can work from home. Some of the stuff that's not said on here, which is critically important, and there's been a lot of HR activity, and that's changing because the federal rules might be changing. All of this stuff and every decision made with regard to payroll, with regard to how people get paid, with regard to what the leave is, with regard to what the policy is, with regard to what the union contract says, and all of those things need to be addressed and need to be addressed in great detail. I want to thank HR for doing that. When it comes to making sure that payroll goes out and all of those issues, I want to thank Paula for making sure that those things are in place to make sure that there isn't an interruption in the event of some kind of personnel catastrophic failure, that the appropriate laptops that can be addressed at home that are secure and issued through our IT department under the strictest of guidelines are all there and available to do it. We talked about the bond issue that we did this evening when it comes to how do you administer a large road project if the city hall is closed. Those issues with regard to telecommuting between our engineering staff and them are all being worked out. There's a ton of little things and big things that are happening that aren't even on this list. So I wanted, it's our responsibility. I understand that you've already made the motion and seconded the motion to pass the resolution declaring this a public health risk. This summary was designed to kind of give you an update of what's happening on a more direct level. Does anybody have any questions? Alderperson Levitsky.
I just have a few questions.
Before you ask.
They're just generalized.
Okay, it's just if the council would endure under mayor's report, we have our assistant police chief here, our superintendent of public works here, our HR person here. We have Darren from health. We have Paula from finance. We have Brian, who we've been working with just to figure out how to agenda this item, actually. And we have Jennifer. So if with
the fire chief.
And John, sorry, our emergency manager. Sorry, I didn't see you back there. This guy's, I don't have my glasses on, so I just see shapes anyway. So.
Besides, all I got was I
Have
helped
some
with the
questions,
agenda.
and if I don't know the answer or it's not specific enough, the entire staff is here to do that. And Christy's involved in, I hate to say this, involved in development, but she's got inspections too, and we haven't even gotten into that on this, but we will, I promise. Okay, go ahead.
So when the council approves to put Greenfield in a state of emergency, similar to Dan did in West Allis, does that provide additional services for our residents instead of going to the hospital?
No.
The health department's closed, they can't get tests. What about?
It doesn't do that at all.
Okay, so the health department's closed for our residents that rely on blood pressure checks, vaccines, WIC, families that take advantage of that was housed here, or we
So
were
the WIC,
figuring
so the
that
WIC
out?
program has been suspended, I think initially, right, as Darren can do that.
Okay. I know a lot of seniors really take advantage of the blood pressure checks and the vaccines.
A lot of the seniors rely on
families.
those blood pressure
Yeah.
checks because we're their only healthcare provider. I want, before Darren gets into Darren could go down paragraph to footnote to citation from some review if he wanted to. For the most part, I want to be clear that we are focusing strictly on the essential services of the city to ensure the continuity of operations. And everything that I've read and everything that we've done to this point is to ensure that blood pressure clinics, those kinds of things, I'll leave to you.
Yeah, essentially what we've done is we've closed all walk-in services entirely. So that does include blood pressure clinics once a month at our shop. It also includes blood pressure clinics out in the community. Basically, we made that decision to keep those who are at highest risk kind of safe and in their homes. We have found the clients that we serve typically are well connected to physicians. They just come to us for additional monitoring throughout the month. The WIC clinic was not here today, and it will not be here for weeks into the future, but the WIC clinic has obviously changed over the last few years. They have electronic debit cards now, so those can be reloaded remotely, and they can make phone calls and have kind of do a business continuity thing themselves with WIC. So they're operating aggressively out of the West Allis Health Department instead of out of here. I can see us probably keeping them out of here for the next several weeks. In general, not having them in our shop may allow us to ramp up use of that conference room that they use for being here, as well as our clinic rooms for any enhanced public health follow-up that we may need to do in coming weeks.
Okay.
Another similar one is the Stockbox program.
Right.
So we've been working with Hunger Task Force, and we've been creating the operational plan to move it out of this room. And Scott's been working with them to move it to the community center, where the folks won't come in and sit like they normally do.
Right.
It'll be curbside service likely, and those plans are being formulated as we speak.
What about the service-orientated establishments, hair salon, nail salons, lash salons? They're business as usual? It's like we're closing, doing drive-throughs only to minimize personal contact, but my 17-year-old's been at the mall every day, the movie theater.
Movie theaters closed. I know Marcus just sent out an email.
They did today? They closed?
As of 8:30, yeah.
Okay, so what about like the service-orientated establishments? What about the stores, grocery stores, Walgreens? Are they minimizing the number of people they're letting into the Walmart, to the Sendix, to the Pick and Saves?
So the way that this works is the governor has provided guidance with regard to which business establishments should be closed. He's ordered those closures. Concurrent with that is guidance, where they talk about 6 feet, whether it used to be less than 250 people, and then you'd hear people say, well, how about if we have 249, right?
Now it's
And then it was less than 50. Now it's the President of the United States at a news conference yesterday said it should be 10. The reality is, and other guidance suggests that if you're over a certain age, 50, 60, 70, as you get older, that you shouldn't be using this, well, I can be around 10 people. You should be taking extreme steps to isolate yourself from public contact whatsoever. When it comes to gas stations, when it comes to hospitality, when it comes to grocery stores, when it comes to some of those other businesses that you named off, those were excluded from the governor's guidance, other than the proximity kinds of things, and the other things that he said. I was at Meijer today. They have duct tape X's on the floor that are 6 feet apart to act as guidance for people that are going through the grocery store. Is that helping? Is that doing anything? I don't know, really. But there is we do not have the authority to close grocery stores, gas stations, those kinds of things. I guess Darren could do it if he wanted to, but at least at this point, the public is, still needs to eat. And I'm not sure those discussions and those decisions are still necessary to make. I will note that the Walmart parking lot, based on what I've seen anecdotally, was more full for a longer period of time than around the Thanksgiving and Christmas season. I can say the same thing about the Meyer parking lot, which was full from the building all the way to Layton. And I don't ever remember seeing it that full. So I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like Christmas Target, you can't.
So when it
park
comes
with-
to nail salons and hairdressers and all those kinds of things, I'm guessing those operators are balancing the pressures of making money and customer contact. I'm not sure how you do someone's nails if you don't stay 6 feet away, if you have to stay 6 feet away.
Well, they wear masks. They wear
Well,
like respirators.
so, I mean, to some extent, it's a question of common sense and good practice and all of those kinds of things. Personally, if I had my nails done, I wouldn't do it now. I desperately need a haircut and have for weeks, and I haven't got one, if that makes sense.
Well, it just,
And in fact, I haven't clipped my nails in like 3 days because I haven't had to. If you want to see them, they look really.
it just seems odd to me
You can't
that
clip your own nails, Mike?
bars and
I
restaurants.
can't find my clipper, and I'm not sure I
Stated,
sanitized
but
it.
yet other retail establishments and service-oriented establishments can pretty much do what they want. It's like all or nothing. It should be across the board.
There ought to be a law. There used to be a comic strip like that.
Can I address some of those things? I've heard the governor has given exemptions for grocery stores and stores that sell essential
There have been
products.
significant
Yeah,
exemptions.
they have been given exceptions, and I think part of the reason some of those other things aren't in this is because people don't congregate in large groups usually in a nail salon or a hair salon or, massage therapy, those type things. It's usually gonna be under the 10 limit. I mean, every time I've taken my kids in for haircuts, there's no more than 10 people waiting and,
In fairness, I know the camera can't point to the audience, but there seems to be significant social distancing between everyone that's out there, which is a good thing. We right now are probably in violation of the guidance because I'm not sure
needs to be a
that
little
we're,
outdoor.
that we're 6 feet apart, right? There are more than 10 people in this room, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I guess we're good with that. We're under 10. It's common sense.
You didn't count this one.
One of the other things I think we should probably talk about based on the kinds of questionings and what we've been talking about, do we have meetings? How do we do meetings? We can't do them by telecommuting. We have to meet. We probably need to change how we do this at some point. We probably need to get rid of many of the committee meetings and just meet here. Usually we have a consent agenda, right, where we spend all this time at the committees. Things are brought here and they're passed pretty quickly, or they're passed, hopefully because they got out of committee. A lot of those items, like the finance meeting, I know the Board of Public Works meeting was canceled.
Library board's canceled.
Library board's canceled, legislative will be likely canceled.
Board of
Most
Health
of the
is not.
non-essential committee meetings, not that they're not all important and they're not all mandated, many of those committees will likely or should likely be postponed or only held in the event of something that's essential to the operation of the city.
I canceled my Williamsburg condominium meeting that was supposed to be last Saturday here in the chambers. I emailed and called them and said.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because I think Scott did too, so.
Well, yeah, Scott was gonna
Yeah.
close it, I was gonna open it, and I just said I canceled it.
Yeah, I think we canceled it too. So, but I'm glad. It's the important part is that we're not holding events, we're not doing things, and it's foreseeable at least through April. When you listen to the president's news conference, he was saying, well, July or August it should be done. Who knows, right? It's not going to be a short duration.
Well, that's the goal.
That's the goal, right? If we can flatten the curve. So one final thing, this is just the kind of the anecdotal thing that I want to point out. Has everyone seen the flatten the curve graph where there's like a blue, gradual curve, and then there's a big red thing in front of it? To give you an idea where we are, and I asked our health director about this, and I asked staff about this, we're about 1/8 of an inch in, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch in. So where you see the big red line either going straight up, or you see the big, or the blue line kind of going up, we're at the very bottom. That's where we are right now. So I guess what I would say to all of you is, while it seems as if this is an overreaction, or this is a whatever it is, or whether you don't believe it or it's all, we are prepared to try to flatten the curve to the extent that we can, if it's even possible. And we won't know this probably for the next 7 to 10 to 14 days or less. So I would encourage you all to have patience. I would encourage you to keep your eye on the big picture. That's what we're trying to do. Our mandate under the law is to provide for the health and safety of our community. And I want to say unequivocally that the staff that we have in every single department is committed to that.
Can I also add that it would be good if we could look out for each other too? I mean, like, my mother is in the high risk and she is self-quarantined. And I told her she needs anything, I will be getting it and dropping it at her door for her. So, but I'm sure there's a lot of other people that don't have a relative or family member or friend that could do that. But if you know somebody in even your neighborhood, if you could call them, ask them if they need any assistance. I know my mom has gotten several people in the old neighborhood asking her if she needs help, but there's so many other people out there that don't have that and need that right now.
Well, it's hopeful thinking. Maybe this is the event that provides the opportunity for all of us to like each other again.
That would be nice.
It's not a joke.
If we're going by how greedy people are and how much bottled water and toilet paper and hand sanitizer, carts and carts full while other
Yeah,
people
well,
have none, don't get me started. So
I appreciate your optimism. I'm
you have
trying to be even more
realistic.
optimistic.
People are,
Well, I try to be
you know,
optimistic.
As long as you ask that, are we doing anything for the mental health of our community to get them through this very depressing time?
such as, like,
I don't know, that's why I asked
I
the
could say
question.
the Ridge is reaching out. I know they reached out to me today, and they're checking on people's mental health. So I know the religious community is doing that. I mean, today I took my kids walking so we could go count shamrocks on windows, and several neighbors were out. We kept our distance, but we're able to talk. So people, I think, I'm seeing a lot more people outside.
Today helped.
Yeah, well, and yeah, other days, but I think people are getting out, and it's easy to keep a big bubble if you're, in the outdoors or whatnot, but
I think that's important, I guess was my point. That-
It is
that we keep a
important.
positive
So most of
attitude
the
through
essential
this.
services that we provide are,
The park and rec stuff is all that kind of makes you cheery, and we don't have that
well,
anymore.
the park and rec stuff and the library stuff and
centers.
the senior center, the Citizens Police Academy, all of the other things that we do that provide things for people to do.
Are gone.
Bruce Bailey and the Tree Commission,
yeah,
all of
we
those
missed those
things
reports,
are,
Bailey.
they're all sort of on hold. I guess the best thing we can do is talk to each other nicely. 50 years ago, we couldn't talk to each other on cell phones, we couldn't Skype, we couldn't FaceTime, we couldn't do all those things. If that technology is available, if you know somebody that's older, maybe you can get them that technology so they can talk to them. We don't usually provide mental health services, getting back to your immediate
yeah.
question, but we refer it a lot, whether it's through the AP or through police or fire, health department interaction. Certainly those resources, I think, will continue to be referred.
I just have one more question. I don't know if this would be for Darren. We're still allowing big centers like KinderCare to have hundreds and hundreds of kids in close proximity. Wouldn't that go along with the schools?
So let me, I guess maybe I can jump in because I've been kind of wanting to. I think we need to recognize one thing, that we have multiple levels of government that are involved here. The resolution that's before us, deals with very local things. It's going to help us hopefully recoup some of the costs of the extra spending that we have in response to this. It's going to set up the framework for us to address employee issues as they're quarantines or not quarantines, those types of things. How we run operations, general operations, those types of concerns. At the next level, the state level, that's the stuff that we've all just been talking about, the hair salons and the retail outlets and the daycare centers and that kind of stuff. Those are decisions that generally are beyond or above our authority. Certainly, at some point, Darren may have the ability very locally to step in and do those things. But the reality is that at least at this point, not Darren, but also pretty much every local health authority in the state is relying on that guidance from that next level up. And just like the next level up then is relying in some part on the federal level as to what they're recommending. And yes, at this point, they have identified that daycares are centers that they are going to continue to allow to operate. Part of that is the risk reward that you're looking at. Yes, there is some risk that you are exposing individuals to that. On the other hand, we also have folks that are first responders or, whatever, that need to have childcare for their children in order to continue to do the essential services that otherwise need to take place. And so, yes, it's easy for us to criticize and judge and say, look, here is, an example of the inconsistencies that are there, but there's probably reasons for those inconsistencies. But more importantly, there are inconsistencies that exist that really aren't in our control at this point. And so it's just something to kind of keep in mind. The last thing that I'll say, and then hopefully I can stop talking for the rest of the day, just altogether. Because
You're not getting paid by the
I'm
minute.
kind of sick of talking over the last handful of days. But is that at least in terms of mental health, there are things that are out there. We have within the city for employees, we do have a program that we can refer you to if you are experiencing that. I say that for you folks, as well as anybody that's listening that may be employees, those exist. At the state level, there are likewise hotlines and phone numbers that you can call. I don't have them off the top of my head, but they do exist. I did see a poll today that suggested that in terms of where folks are feeling that they're getting the best information on this stuff, the highest rated folks for that are your local health officials and your state and local governments. And that information is being provided. It is out there. You just need to go out and look for it. And you would encourage folks to the extent that they're feeling that need to seek that service out, because they are out there.
Thank you.
Lots of information, lots of
As a
emails.
parent of children that go to KinderCare, I can say that they have taken huge steps. Parents are not allowed in any classrooms. Kids must wash their hands upon entering their classroom. And when I dropped my kids off Monday morning, I was not sure what I was going to see when I walked in those doors. They weren't sure what they were going to see, and the numbers are extremely low. There are hardly any kids. My kids go to the one on 27th Street. And after tomorrow morning, UWM closes at noon, and we're all working remotely, so my children will no longer be there either. So I think a lot of the parents that can work remotely are keeping kids home, and only the essential ones that have to go to work, I'm sorry to say, but when I checked out at Sendix the other day, I said, "Did you ever think your job was going to be this essential?" And the boy said, "Nope." But those are essential people that we need to be able to go to work, and those, along with the hospitals and firefighters and police and whatnot. So I can tell you KinderCare is taking it serious. We've gotten emails. There will be closures. The employees are free to not come in if they feel they're at risk. So they are taking everything very, very serious.
Well, that's good.
I just want to let you know that you probably saw in the news today, upwards of $1 trillion is being requested to be spent on the economic fallout and the things that are resulting from what's happening right now. It's $1 trillion, okay? It started out at 3.4 billion last week, and then it went to 8.5 billion or something, and now it's almost $1 trillion. what's happening before us right now is real. It's serious. And I think like Brian's, there's only so many things that we do. There are others that are doing things. The good news is it seems that people are starting to realize
It's real.
that it's real. I'd like to think we recognized it was real 2 weeks before some others, but, and just so you know too, with the emergency management resolution that's here, we did it on Friday and West Dallas copied us, just so you know.
Really?
Yeah, really. We sent it after a conference call. But anyways, that's okay.
We have a motion and a second. Do you wanna take
Did we
action?
vote on
Motion and second, would you please call?
Alderperson Lubatsky,
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey,
Aye.
Alderperson Akers,
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian,
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner.
Aye.
Aldermanic reports, there aren't any this evening, right? Announcements, there aren't any. I think we've announced a lot.
I'd like to make an announcement.
Oh, you do?
And,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Sort of connected to people helping people. I was contacted today by Mr. Ali El Hashash of Holy Land Grocery in Greenfield. He told me that he'd be able to get approximately 150 cases of bottled water by the middle of next week, and he'd like to donate the water, make it available to anyone who needs it during this coronavirus crisis. He'd be willing to deliver it to City Hall to make it available here, but I don't know if we'd want to do that, but I thought maybe,
So can this is a good point. In the event that anyone offers, if we can get it to Darren, or you want to speak to this? Because I also had the Boost Mobile guy in Forest
Yeah,
Home
I think we could
offer
be a
hand
conduit
sanitizer.
within the Emergency Operations Center. I also know that Salvation Army is collecting a lot of those things too. So, I mean, even more important than us, if somebody from the community or somebody watching would like to make a donation to Salvation Army on, was it 29th and Cold Spring, they're there to help, people in need as well. And so they're ramping that up as well right now.
so would you like me to suggest to him to donate to the Salvation Army, or would you like me to do that? I don't know what,
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you get anybody that wants to donate time, energy, product, anything, if you got it to me, I can get it distributed, or if you get it to John or Darren, I think that would help, okay?
So
Or
we
all
should-
three of us, because we're
So we'll
constantly-
just email to you and then you
Yeah,
can
at this
contact
point,
him?
maybe starting that way, and then if it gets crushing, we can go another way. But I know the Salvation Army's mission is to help the community, and I was really proud to see that they had contacted us over the weekend and said, we're here, we're collecting items, toilet paper, paper towels, all of the things. They run a food pantry one day a week, so they're going to probably get slammed at some point. So I think it's going to be a very good idea for us to keep them in our thoughts as well and try to align resources with theirs.
One thing I think we
And
can
I did mention that to him, by the way, just so you'll know.
Thank you.
But I thought, I
That's it.
would pass along what he asked. So,
One thing that we can use, I think, internally is hand sanitizer.
Hey, you have to reach out to Boxer, Old Fashioned.
Yeah,
They changed and now manufacturing it.
are they?
Spray.
Are they? So, I mean, that kind of product would be helpful. Masks, N95 masks, if you have any of those at the grocery store, that would be helpful too. All right, so the motion was made and seconded. Did we call on this one yet?
No,
This
we
is
are
just our
on
announcement.
Aldermanic
we were on
reports.
Oh, we already did that.
announcements.
Sorry, I'm just. sorry.
Citizen commentary.
There is no citizen commentary tonight, okay, moving along to I1, public hearing on a special use permit for the proposed limited service restaurant and bar venue, 27 Social with Lightspeed and existing business, 4251 South 27th Street, submitted by John Maddock. Christie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have an application before the Common Council this evening for Lightspeed, an existing business on 27th Street, which is Zone C2, to allow for limited service restaurant and tavern use within their existing building. Oops, sorry. This is a proposed change of operation. And also, they're proposing to change their hours of operation as well, to be extended. You can see on Mondays from currently 9 p.m., proposing to extend to 11 p.m. Fridays currently closing at 10, proposing to remain open until midnight. Saturdays currently closing at 10 p.m., proposing to remain open until midnight. And then Sundays, they're currently closing at 8 p.m. and they're proposing to remain open until 10 p.m. The floor plan in front of you shows what the proposal highlighted in the red circle here would be to add a kitchen space and bar space with seating. And they also are changing a little bit of the operations, which isn't necessarily under review, but just more of an FYI. They're doing X throwing, so becoming more of an entertainment venue for maybe a wider range of age ranges, families, adults who already are there for the children. The owners proposing to provide more services for the people, which would maybe incentivize them to stay a little bit longer.
Just one quick thing, you see axe throwing there, so there are standards for throwing axes, and Mr. Maddock is complying with those standards.
Yes.
Just
Michael, we should vote.
So the Plan Commission reviewed this, and one thing we did ask is for a copy of the easement agreement. You can see that this site has parking in the rear. The building takes up the entire north-south width of the parcel, so there's no direct access to the parking in the back. They do have access. This is the driveway everyone uses, but it's through an easement access, and the owner did provide, there's been an easement in place since the 60s for that. So we have that on file now. 97 parking spaces are required for the mixture of entertainment, bar and restaurant uses. 74 spaces are provided. They do have a easement, an agreement with Brager. Their staff uses about 22 spaces in the back of the lot. With the review comes full site review, and when the Plan Commission reviewed this in February, there was a long list of recommendations for some site improvements, and I went out to visit the site today, and Mr. Maddock has made substantial improvements already, so that list is definitely reduced. He will be constructing a four-sided refuse enclosure in the rear, and he will be doing some patching and repairing of damaged pavement in the back and restriping of the spaces. And then Plan Commission asked us for some increased landscaping within the existing bed. But before there were large red and white plastic kind of go-kart bumpers all over the site, and they have been removed. And as I mentioned, the site has been substantially cleaned already just in the last month. The Plan Commission recommended approval at their February 11th meeting, and we've received no letters of objection to date.
Mr. Maddock is here. Does anyone want to speak for or against their informational purposes concerning this item? No one is registered. Would anyone like to speak for, against, or for informational purposes concerning this item?
Motion to close public hearing.
Motion by Alderperson Castro to close, second by Alderperson Labatsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? I guess I don't get to vote. All opposed? All right. Passes unanimously to close public hearing.
I will adopt the resolution.
You'd make a motion to adopt the resolution for Lightspeed, an existing business located at that address?
Yes.
Second.
And motion by Alderperson Labatsky, second by Alderperson Akers. On call, please.
Alderperson Labatsky,
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey,
Aye.
Alderperson Akers,
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian,
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner.
Aye.
I just have a question for them. Can I ask?
Well,
Where are the party rooms going now? Where are the party rooms going now?
So we do have a party room upstairs,
Okay.
which still allows us to do private parties. But we've kind of realized that most people actually want to, I guess, be social, although right now that's not a
Good
cool
thing.
thing. But yeah, so we still will have a private party room, but we're trying to make it so everybody's a little more inclusive.
Okay, because I held our Rick's 10th birthday there. We enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
Do realize you can't open a restaurant anyhow.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can't open that right now, or the bar. Sorry.
I guess the one saving grace is this decision actually will allow my bank to approve a line of credit to at least keep us alive. So this is definitely not fun times.
Yeah,
But I really
definitely.
appreciate it.
Okay. Item I1B is approve the application for the Class B beer and liquor license received from Lightspeed. Entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Motion by Akers, second
Second.
by Alderperson Lobowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item I1C is approve the site plan review as provided by,
Motion to approve site plan
motion
review.
by Alderperson Kastner. Is there a second?
Second. Oh,
I think
sorry.
Alderperson Saring got that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Under old business, appointments to various committees and commissions, I have none this evening. Alderperson Bailey asked that those job descriptions be posted. I know that they were being made, right? Are they posted already? I don't know if
think
they're,
so.
I think they're posted. Item K, new business. Item K1 is applications for operator licenses. There aren't any concerns. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
By Alderperson Lobowski, second by Akers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item K2, approve change of agent from Thomas Montgomery to Chad Carson for Portillo's Hot Dogs on 8705 West Sorrel Lane. Entertain a motion to approve that change of agent.
Motion to approve.
By Alderperson Akers, there's second.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Castro, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item K4, approve site landscaping architectural plans for BioLife Plasma Services, a proposed plasma center to be Did I skip 3? Oh, I did skip 3, I'm sorry. K3, approve site and architectural plans for construction of a parking slab at 16944 West Forest Home Avenue, subject to plan and commission and staff comments. Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderperson Kastner, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Akers, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. And the minutes should reflect the planning stuff so that somebody, I know you know, you're fine. K4, approve site landscaping architectural plans for BioLife Plasma Services to be located at 7801 West Layton Avenue, subject to plan, commission, and staff comments. This is the old Golf Galaxy building, which will lose the back half, essentially, right? Do you have anything on? So at Planning Commission, there were some desires for enhancements to the building. I think the applicant did a wonderful job. Did you see it? I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
it.
I seen them.
Is this kind of, shouldn't we not be touching this all? Just hold
Should
it
we
up
not be,
for-
yeah,
just hold
good
it.
point. We shouldn't be touching it. I forgot. But that's what it looks like, and that
That's good, right?
staff, I think
That's enough.
staff, and,
That's good. We're good.
okay. Entertain a motion to approve. Did I already do
No,
that?
we didn't.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Alderperson
Second.
Kastner, second by Lobowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 5, approve a CSM to divide existing parcel at 10500 West Carpenter, subject to planning commission staff comments. And entertain a motion to approve that CSM.
Motion to approve CSM.
By
Second.
Kastner, second by Lobowski. Do I have to call in CSMs? I can never remember. No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Another one on 6 is approve a CSM to combine two existing parcels located at 7915 West Allerton Avenue and 7917 West Allerton Avenue, subject to planning commission staff comments. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Alderperson Bailey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Kastner. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 7 is approve the schedules of disbursements as indicated. This would normally be a finance committee item. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Kastner, second by Alderperson Akers. Would you please call?
Alderperson Lobowski,
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey.
Aye.
Alderperson Akers.
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian.
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner.
Aye.
Item 8 is consider and approve the lease agreement with the City of West Dallas to lease Badger books for the April election. I'd entertain a motion to approve this agreement.
Should we approve the agreement with the open-ended date on that, though?
I think there's a date specified in the agreement, and that would be fine with us. Just have to
What if
see.
we move the election?
we're hoping by that point, well, depending when the election would be postponed to, we're supposed to get our shipment in May sometime, so.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Caster, second by Alderperson Labatsky. The minutes should reflect that in the date that any relevant date changes, the approval would be consistent with the desire of this council to allow the clerk's department to amend that agreement, subject to the city attorney's review, right? To coincide with any date change or material change, okay? The minutes should, if we can get that in there somehow. That would be helpful, so we don't have to go through this again, right? Motion was made and seconded. Would you call it an agreement?
Alderperson Labatsky?
Aye.
Alderperson Bailey?
Aye.
Alderperson Akers?
Aye.
Alderperson Sarian?
Aye.
Alderperson Kastner?
Aye.
Okay, moving along to item number 9. Does anyone have any questions or issues regarding contracts or personnel issues related to the COVID response that you think you need to discuss with me or us?
We kind of,
I think
We did that.
I think we probably did, but one could drill down deeper into some of the statutorily protected communications. I'm not sure that that's necessary to do that.
could change tomorrow.
It could change
It's
tomorrow anyways.
changing so rapidly, and I trust that we have good leadership in there.
Okay, so therefore, I apologize to hundreds of hours of overhead and staff time sitting here, but I wanted them to be here in the event that there were any questions that needed to be asked. I also wanted you to realize that they're all working diligently to protect the health and safety of the community. Okay? Is that fair?
I am truly honored to have them working on the city's behalf, and I am truly shocked on the job they are doing.
In a good way.
In a good
In a
way?
good way, in a very good way. I had, Monday morning,
Excited.
Yeah, very excited about the job they're doing. Marvelous job. And I had some questions Monday morning. I was gonna go out there and get them, and I called Mike, and, well, that you got done, that you got done, that you got done. Everything I wanted to make sure you guys were doing. You guys were a step ahead of us, and I guess from some point of view, we're allowing them to do it. And I think that's a good cooperation that we do have. And I think that's the role, because we would just slow you down if we got involved. So I appreciate everyone in this room.
Thank
And
you.
then the emergency management, library people,
Thank you.
library
Thank you.
group over there is doing.
Thank you.
And the time you're putting in, because it's over and above what normally you are doing on a daily basis. I know it. Thank you.
I agree with Alderman Kastner. Also, if there's anything that we can do to help, though, please reach out to us, because I don't know
Thank
what we can do,
Thank you.
but we,
Alderperson.
I just have a question. I know tomorrow I read there's going to be some kind of a telecommunication thing or call that city officials can participate in with, I believe, a White House staff person.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if any of you are participating. I guess I'd be interested if there is room to do that.
If you reach out to John or Darren, I mean, I have not sat in,
We've been on White House briefings. They have a very large bridge that we could send to you, that you have to pre-register for and then log in.
So I can do it from home?
Yeah.
not doing it from City Hall?
That would be great. Because I know they said they have a limited number of lines or something, but,
Is it?
okay, so if you do that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Is it the federal one, or I know that
Federal,
our,
yes.
House.
I know our insurance company also has one tomorrow morning, I
No,
think.
it's federal.
The federal one?
That was one that was listed, I saw that one limited to 150.
Right.
Yeah, I saw
The
that.
White House one has several thousand.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
I saw that 150 one though as well. I don't know what that was.
okay.
We've been saying we get about as much email in a day now that we were getting in over a month.
Can't keep up with it, and a lot of it is repetitive.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the other, I guess, kind of pragmatic thing for all of you, like, Alderperson Sarian called me, I think it was yesterday, maybe it was Sunday. And I said, I'll
Yesterday.
call you right back. And by then
You did
and
not
not that
call.
I would ever forget about you, but
You did?
it was so far down the list. The same thing holds true with all of you. If you're emailing me, or you're calling me, it's not that I'm not trying to call you back or email you or sit down and give a well-reasoned response to answer your question. There's probably something a little bit more pressing at the time.
But I answered the phone when you called me, Michael, on Friday, right?
Remember I
He
called
likes you
but
better
yeah,
than me.
So, I mean, I'm glad you answered because if I'm calling you, there's usually,
Like, what do you want?
no, I didn't say that. So, but the point is that just be patient
I
and
understand.
bug me or bug everybody in the event that there's a
Anyone have any
critical issue.
sanitizer up here? They want to like put some in my hand?
All right, so we don't have to have a closed session. We can,
I don't
we
need
can
to
skip
touch the
10, we can skip 11, and we can skip 12 items for future
Big.
agenda. There are other issues to discuss in the future. This is obviously the most prevailing one. We have to see how things go over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So things, we need to be flexible. If you're the chair of any committee,
Cancel them?
well, you don't just cancel them. If you got something important, we'll continue to have the common council meetings. It's probably best for us to meet once or twice a month as opposed to meet 8, 10, 12 times a month with the committee stuff that's going on. If there's something that requires significant discussion or like a planning commission public hearing or something, that's a completely different ballgame. But most of the routine things that we need to do, we should just direct to council. And we'll try to figure out by then what the social spacing is and the other accommodations that we need to make. The final thing is that we're encouraging people not to come to meetings, but to instead watch them on the streaming service, which I think we're finally getting to the point where we're figuring it out in a good way. Without interruption, so that's another thing, okay? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at,
So moved.
by Alderperson Bailey,
8:22.
8:22, all in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Or second by Lebowski, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. At 8:22, we are adjourned.
What's the money so you can get some jeans that don't have holes in them?
I paid for them.
Where's that present that you
All right, who else needs hand